Finance Clinic Show. This is Dr. Pardon Mwansa, your host. Many people are really being blessed as they watch this program. I keep on getting text messages, sometimes phone calls from different parts of the country, asking questions, seeking information, and I can tell that people are being blessed. So I hope as you sit down to now watch again today's show that you too will be blessed. I actually heard from a gentleman in Katete, Eastern Province, who actually sent me a list of their financial goals with amounts attached to, and they said to me, Doc, can you help me? Are my financial goals realistic? Are they attainable? And we have since engaged in an exchange of ideas so that they would be in top shape with their finances. This is very rewarding because in the Finance Clinic Show, we want to make sure that not only do we teach people something, but that they actually practice what we are learning together. I also heard from a gentleman in Kapiri who asked what I thought was a very interesting question. He said, Doc, I listened to the presentation on financial goals, and I have a question which is, should I open individual accounts in the bank with each of my financial goals? To which obviously I responded and told them that they don't have to open different savings accounts for each of their goals. What they needed to do is open one account, savings account, and then when they take money into that account for a specific goal, then they record on a separate piece of paper that this money is for that goal, this money is for that other goal. Thereby, if they have a total of money in the bank, let's say 6,000, they will have on their record 2,000 is for this, 1,000 is for this, 3,000 is for this. Now, we always start with signs. What are the signs of a person who is experiencing financial stress? Today, we have two signs that I would like to share. That's signs. Number one, sign number one, absent from work. When you start missing work because you've gone to look for money. It's one thing to be absent from work because you've gone to the hospital, you are sick. But many people miss work maybe part of the morning or the afternoon or actually a day or two because they've gone somewhere to go and make money. You know, that work time you have taken away from work with or without permission, or when it's not your leave, it simply means you are gossiping. You are like a person who's sinking and you are looking for ways to survive, and so what do? You start missing from work. Number two, sign number two, when you fail to pay routine payments. What are routine payments? Routine payments are things like your house rental. Everybody, I really mean everybody, knows when the rentals are due. It's either on the 25th or on the whatever date, on the 30th. When you come to the 30th and you don't have the money to pay to a routine financial bill, it simply means you are not organized in your finances and you are struggling to find a way to survive. That's why you are failing. Now, if that is the case, you know what you need. You need to attend the finance clinic. Now, let me take time to first of all define budgeting. So our topic today is budgeting, which is the allocation of income to cover expenses. Budgeting can be defined in many ways, but basically, budgeting is the allocation of income to cover intended expenses. I will try to illustrate this in the simplest or diverse manner that I can ever find. However, I would like you to keep two things in mind. Those two things are, as you can see on the slide, budgets are developed from goals. You start with your goal. The goal is the driving force. It's the driver of a budget. A budget is not something that just comes empty. You remember in our previous presentations where I took time to explain financial goals. Financial goals are your deliberate decisions on how you want to drive your life financially. The next step from goals is now allocating time. Let's say, they will say, from 8 in the morning to 10 in the morning, I will go to the hospital. That is budgeting. They have budgeted the time that they have by saying from 8 to 10, I will go to the hospital. Secondly, from 10 to 16 hours in the afternoon, I will go to Kabwe and I will come back. So they have now budgeted for their second goal. They are budgeting time. Then they will say, for my last goal, I will, between 16 hours and 18 hours, I will go to my landlord and pay. Now, if you have followed, budgeting is like that. It's transforming your goals into specific acts of blocks of how to accomplish it. In this case, this time I've budgeted it to do this. This time I'll do this. Now just now go to money. Instead of time, now go to money. You already had listed your goals, your financial goals. Now what you do is you take your financial goals, you put them into two columns of a budget. The two columns of a budget, as you can see on the slide, is the income and the expense. A budget or budgeting is the identification of and allocation of income for expenditure. Identification of, meaning you identify money. And then you allocate that money for expenditure. This is what I will spend this money I've identified. Like the 12 hours in a day. You say I have 12 hours, that's my income. Then my expense is I will spend it this way, this way, this way. That is a budget. Now, because a budget is something I really want you to understand. And let me say this. I've received comments from the different corners of Zambia saying, Dr. Mwansa, your presentations seem to assume that everybody works. What about those of us who don't work? How can you address us with the concepts you are addressing? Now, please watch and complete today's show because there are 3 parts that I will present to budgeting. Let me reflect those 3 parts. Those 3 parts, first of all, there are 3 kinds of budget, 3 types of budgets. The 3 three types of budgets are, number one, a mental budget. What's a mental budget? A mental budget is something somebody just thinks about, and when they think about that budget, in their brain, they say, when I'm paid, I will do this, I will do this. It's all mental. That's a mental budget. Now, mental budgets do work. The only problem is, mental budgets are a little bit funny because you can forget, number one. Number two, you can easily mix things because it's just in your brain. And obviously, the biggest weakness about mental budgets is you are the only one who has it in your brain. And yet, many of us don't live alone where we live so that a mental budget becomes okay. The second type of a budget is what is called a physical budget. What is a physical budget? I will illustrate it this way. I have a box here. This is my box. This is physical. You can see it. A physical budget is like this. I decide to put envelopes in my cash box. Envelope number one is my anticipated income that I'm expecting to receive a total of 11,000 kwacha. Now, that's a lot of money. But to somebody, it could just be 1,000 kwacha. To another person, it could be 500 kwacha. To another person, it could be 20,000 kwacha. But a physical budget is whereby you identify an envelope and you have money and you put in the envelope. You put in this envelope 10,000 kwacha, and it is your income. Then with this income, 10,000 kwacha put here, then you say, okay, I'm now going to write my other envelopes. I'll call them expenses. My expenditure envelope number one is I'm trying to save for business purposes. One day, I want to open a business. So then you decide to say, okay, maybe your financial goal is to raise up to 5,000 kwacha. Because you want to raise up to 5,000 kwacha, you decide that from your 11,000, you'll be setting aside some money. So what do? When you get some money, you put some money in here, physical. Then you say, number two, it's my tithe. You say, I will keep a tithe from the money that I get. If that is again what you decide to do, when you get your money from the 11,000, again you put tithe here, whatever that tithe is. And you put it back. Then you say, I have learned that I need to be saving. So for my savings, which I intend to save this whole year, 10,000 kwacha, then you say, I will put something in this envelope. You put it aside. Then you say, to pay my nkongole, my debt, I will also go ahead and put in there. Then for food, I will put in here. A physical budget works in this way. You take the money that you anticipate, which is from the income envelope, you allocate it into individual envelopes, and when you do that, you then take these envelopes and you put them in a cash box. Put them in a cash box, you close them. That is your cash box. And I hope you keep it safe because it is now loaded with money. Now, here is how this physical budget works. You have put money there, and it's no longer just a mental budget. It's not just in your brain. It is something you can physically see. That is a physical budget. However, as you can see again on the screen, on the types of budgets, the third type is a written budget. A written budget is a budget that you literally go ahead and write down. And I will break this down. You literally write it down completely so that it is on paper. From physical, which is where you even put money, you go literally now to a physical budget, to a written budget, which is on paper. Now let me say this. To many people who may want to take life in a very simple way, just trying a physical budget will help you. The discipline to a physical budget is, don't you open the envelope that has money for something else. You only open the envelope for food if you want food. You keep this envelope completely sealed because you've given it an allocation. This is very helpful. It has worked historically for many people. It can work. Now, it may not work for modern people, particularly people living in urban areas. And obviously, the problem with this is security. Because if somebody lifts this up, then there goes your budget. That's a problem. But I'm assuming you will put it where it is really hidden. But now, a written budget is what financial counselors like me recommend. Why do we recommend a written budget? A written budget is something that is much more comprehensive. It's beyond you, and you can see it. We'll talk about that as we go. Now, there are 3 parts to a budget. Today, I'm only going to talk about one. The 3 aspects of a budget are, number 1, the budgeting, which is what we are discussing today. We will look at the question, why is it important to budget? What should I budget for? Who should budget? When should I budget? But after we do that, in our next presentation, I will take time now to discuss the second aspect of budgeting, which is budgeting for income. Let me explain. When a person says, I have written down how I'm going to spend money, that is a spending plan, and it's okay. Mainly, a spending plan is you have money, you just got your salary, or you just got your pay from somebody you have done service for, then you start writing how you will spend it. That's not a budget as such in the technical term. That's a spending plan, because in a way, you have money and you just want to spend it, how you will spend it. A budget in its proper way is and contains a part called income, where you think through for a long period of time, maybe 3 months or 6 months, in most cases for 1 year. You sit down and you don't necessarily have money on that day, but you project the money you plan to earn in January, in February, in March, in April, up to December. When you have identified your sources of income, that is one aspect of budgeting called budgeting for income. We will have a full presentation on that. Then the other aspect is budgeting for expenses. This is where, after you have written down the anticipated income in the month, in the months, in half a year, or in a year, then you write down how you want your money to be spent. This will be made much clearer when we deal with budgeting for expenses. Now, let's see if we can look at why is it important for people to budget. I'll share with you 7 reasons why it is important for you to budget. I'm assuming you now understand budgeting, at least to a certain extent. There are 2 more presentations that will come, so don't struggle if you didn't understand it. For now, let me see if I can convince you that budgeting is so important that it is a necessary step in financial management. Number 1, budgeting puts you in control of your financial life. You remember that illustration I told you? If you wake up in the morning and all you say is, today I want to go to Kabwe. Today I want to visit somebody in hospital. Today I want to pay the landlord. But you then don't identify specific times when you will do that. You are not yet in control. You can decide to sleep the whole day. But when you budget, you are now saying, this day, this time, I'm going to do this. Budgeting puts you in control. You become the driver. How many of us, in the middle of the month, start to say, I don't know where my salary has gone. You know, that guy paid me money for the job I did for them. I don't know what I've done with the money. Where did the money go? The reason you don't know where the money has gone to is because you did not budget. So in a way, you are not in control of your financial life. But when you budget, which is you list your income and your expenses, you now are in control of where you want the motor vehicle to go. Number 2, it helps you achieve goals. When you have budgeted, you will take slices of your goals into amounts of money and put them in your budget. Then when you start following your budget, you are going toward the accomplishment of your goals. That is so crucial. Without budgets, many people would not accomplish their financial goals. Number 3, it enables you to accomplish much more. You know, this is a very interesting thing. Research has shown that people who write down their goals and write down their budgets accomplish much more financially than those who don't. Now that's pure research findings, because when you write down your goal and when you actually even put an amount, when you are paid, you are most likely going to respect that. So it will help you actually accomplish much more. Number 4, it keeps you focused. You know, there are so many things you can buy. There are so many things you can do. How many times have you gone to a store? All you wanted to do in the store was to buy food and take it home. But when you get to the store, what do you find? They are advertising for a tent. And all of a sudden you say, you know, we don't have a camping tent. This is advertised. It's on cheap. Why don't I buy it? You buy it. When you don't have a budget, you are not focused. A budget helps you to stay focused. Next, a budget helps you to stay or live within your income. To live within your income is something that is very important, because when you have identified your income, your total income, and your expenditure, you will realize that you can't accomplish all your goals in 1 year. Say somebody who came to me and shared with me that they had 10 financial goals for the next 5 years. Number 1, I want to build a house. Number 2, I want to finish my master's degree. Number 3, I want to visit Israel. Now, you crown all your goals in 5 years, goals that are not attainable in that period of time. What happens when you budget is your budget tells you the limit of your income so that you realize you've got to control your goals and put them within limits. The next one is that a budget serves as a communication tool. Let me even take time on this one, because this one is so crucial. 75% of marital tension in marriages, is directly related to failure to communicate. But failure to communicate in this manner is directly failure to communicate on financial matters. Here is how it starts. If you don't have a budget, then every day you have to explain to your husband or to your wife where you spent the money and why you chose to spend the money there. But when the two of you have sat down and the two of you have developed a budget, then you can actually decide that you will have a tool that communicates to both of you as to what should be done with your finances. I cannot overemphasize this point. All I can say is, when you have a budget which both your husband, your wife, or you as a couple have both looked at, you have a tool that communicates to both of you what exactly you need to do financially. So instead of each one coming every day to explain, I spent so money for this, I gained this much money, I did this, you both have a tool that communicates, and all you say is, oh, this is where the money went, it is on our budget. And lastly, a budget helps you start a good habit. It is a very good habit in financial management to know where your money will come from and where your money will go. Now, a question that begs understanding is, who should then budget? With all these important things, who should budget? One time, a certain person helped me understand this. We were asking the question, should people who don't have a lot of money budget? That person put it this way. They said, if I have 10 children and another person has 1 child, which of the two of us, or who out of the two of us, should pay extra care to the child? Is it the one with 10 or is it the one with 1? Obviously, I would hope both should pay all the attention they should, because children are valuable. However, simple logic would tell you that the person with only 1 can only have 1. And if they lose that 1, that's all they have. So they are going to make sure they are careful with what and how they raise that 1 child. The other one with 10 knows in their minds they will do their best, but if they lose 1, at least they have 9. The point I'm making is, everyone who handles money should learn how to budget. So, number 1 answer to who should budget is everyone who handles money. Secondly, especially those with limited income. Now, that is not to say those with big amounts should not budget. As a matter of fact, they know better. They know better that if they don't budget, they can get into trouble. So basically, it's everybody. Number 3, especially married couples. Why is it that married couples should learn to budget? I already gave the reason. The next group that should budget is people who share expenses. When you live together in a home, you need to learn then that you need to budget in order for you to share your expenses. Definitely, that's why companies and organizations and the nation as a whole spends time on budgeting. But there are many people who say, I fail to budget. When we carry out a questionnaire to determine why don't people budget, this is what we found. We found reasons that people don't budget. Reason number 1, I don't have money. Reason number 2, I don't like numbers. Reason number 3, budgeting restricts me. Number 4, I don't have time to budget. Number 5, I can't keep records. Number 6, I'm not disciplined. Number 7, my spouse does not like it. Now, all these are and may be regarded as legitimate reasons. But my friends, even though these are legitimate reasons, they do not remove the fact that budgeting is important. How many times have those people who've given all these excuses have turned around and have realized they don't have money for this, which they could have budgeted for, and they resort to borrowing or to other such exercises. Now, let me lastly deal with the question of what are the features of a good budget. A good budget, number 1, is going to be written down. Write down your budget. When you write it, you've gone through an exercise of even writing it down. Number 2, let your budget be realistic. Don't write dreams. Let it be a realistic budget. Number 3, it should be understandable and communicable. You can't have a budget. How many times have you heard maybe the government present a budget and one of the factors is we don't even understand it. It's for CPAs. No. A budget should be understandable and communicable. You should be able to communicate it to somebody. It should be flexible. Flexible in that, you just don't know how the year will be. So be flexible. And next, a good budget will have one of its features, participative. If you are in a home and you live with other people, they need to participate in the development of a budget and also in the spending of that budget. And lastly, the budget should balance. Balanced budget simply means the total income projected should be the total expenses that you have identified for your budget. Now, I know we've covered a lot, and you are probably brain congested, but I hope you picked something. I hope you picked the value of budgeting. I hope you picked different kind of budgets, and I hope you have selected to say, I want to engage in budgeting. Assignment number 1. Buy a cash box. You are laughing. Yes. Go buy a cash box. By the way, I bought this in ShopRite. And of course, ShopRite has not paid me to say this. I bought this in ShopRite. It was just for 100 kwacha when I bought it. I don't know how much it is now. But to have a cash box in your home or in your office is very important, because even if it's not for budgeting purposes, to have a cash box is to have something that you can lock with your key and control it. It's also important, especially when you are trying to manage budget in a strict way, to make sure that if you put money in an envelope and you just keep cash That's the point. Keep cash with you. So first assignment, go buy a cash box. Assignment number 2. Please write a budget for 3, 6, or 12 months. We are about to start a new year. This is November, and we'll be entering into December. But even if we were not, I would like you to engage in an exercise that many of us have not necessarily done. And that is an exercise of writing down your budget with 2 sections in it: anticipated income and allocated expenses. I want you to write that for 3 months. Start with a 3-month. It's a shorter one. Then go to 6 months. Then try the full year. You will start enjoying financial management. Now, having listened to today's presentation that deals with the importance of budgeting and the definition of budgeting, you don't want to miss the next 2. Because the next 2 presentations, the first one will be budgeting for income. And then the last one will be budgeting for expenses. Those are crucial and important. Every Sunday at 2000 hours, you get glued to the show and you watch this. Again, get in touch with us using the phone appearing on your screen, 09633731115. Until we see you at our next show, stay blessed.